allegiance, so all please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Land Use Board Open Meeting Act Statement of Adequate Notice. I hereby announce and state that adequate notice of this meeting was provided by the Secretary of the Rockaway Borough Land Use Board by preparing a notice dated January 7, 2025, specifying the time, date, and place of this meeting, posting such notice on the bulletin board of Borough Hall, filing said notice, gotta get my eyes focused. Filing said notice, the clerk of the county of Morris, and publishing a notice in the Daily Record newspaper. I hereby hand a copy of such notice to the Secretary of the Borough of Rockaway Land Use Board for inclusion in the minutes of all of the above, being in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 et sequata Open Public Meetings Act. I'm Ken Blair, the chairperson. I would like everyone to note that in the event that we have to leave the room in a hurry, there is an exit ahead of you to your right or behind you to your left. The board has decided that no new cases will be heard after 9:30 and no testimony after 10. And I'm carefully putting my phone in airplane mode so that I won't disturb people if somebody calls me. And may we now please have a roll call?
Tom Mulligan, absent. Ken Van Born.
Here.
Bruce Burma. Here. Ron Hammond will be late. William Butler.
Here.
Mark Howard.
Here.
Jim Hurley is excused. Barbara Koch. Here. Janet Leonard is absent. Bob Schaefer is absent. Kim Rose. Here. Chairman Blair.
Here. Thank you very much. So we have 7 voting members on the board ready to go tonight. The first and only order of business for tonight is a continuation of application LUB number 100. And we started this at our last meeting, and we have a little bit left to go, I believe. And again, all the members of the board have had plenty of time to review all the documentation that went with this, quite a pile. And had the opportunity to visit the property if they were so inclined. Hopefully they all have. And counsel, we'd like to turn the meeting back over to you, sir.
Terrific, thank you, Chairman. John Wichiscala on behalf of Ridgeview at Rockaway LLC. It is our pleasure to be back before the board this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is a continuation of a hearing that we started last month. We are seeking preliminary and final site plan approval with variance relief to permit the development of a 77-unit multifamily residential community on the subject property. If you recall, it is a site that originally received approvals for multifamily development. It did include height variances and other variance relief. It is a project that's subject to an affordable housing overlay, so it's a project that's going to contribute to the borough's affordable housing obligation. When we were here last month, you heard the testimony of our project civil engineer, Mark Walker, who ran through the existing conditions, the topography, and all aspects of the development and the layout. You heard from our traffic engineer, Nick Kennedy, who spoke to trip generation, the impacts that the project would have, on local roadway systems. Mr. Kennedy determined through his firm and their findings that this project will not have a deleterious impact on the local roadway system. And you finally heard from the project architect, Larry Appel. He addressed all the architectural aspects and so forth. And we ran out of time before we could reach our planner. I've got John McDonough with me tonight, who I'm going to have sworn in and speak shortly regarding the variance relief. Mr. McDonough is very familiar with this project. You know, one thing I do want to, again, I'll just give an overview. We are proposing to provide affordable units, or at least the majority, all but one of them in Hillside Gardens. It's the adjacent community. It is owned by my client. They're the developers. They have owned and maintained and operated that for 50 years. And what I would say is, first off, just bear in mind, Hillside Gardens is a market rate community. Always has been. It's a community that has functioned well. They generally work at about 100% occupancy, and there's always some flex there. But they are an operator that upgrades their units when you have turnover in terms of tenancies and the like. We are talking about 2 and 3 bedroom units that are substantial in size, substantial in terms of improvements. And, you know, candidly, and I'm making this point, it's not like we're putting the folks into some sort of substandard situation. They're going into a market rate community here. And to be honest with you, in my view, and we know how affordable housing works, we can't control who comes in, it's a list. End of the day, if you qualify for low or moderate or low income, then you have an opportunity to move into a 2 or 3 bedroom unit here. And to be honest with you, you know, I think anybody on that list should be happy and proud to move into a community such as Hillside Gardens, to be integrated, you know, into what is and has always been a market rate development. And I know there was a question raised along the lines of, well, what's going to happen? Are you going to start throwing people out or discharging people? We have turnover. You know, this isn't a project that would be built overnight. We do know we need to follow UHAC requirements as it relates to, you know, percentages of units that can be occupied and that need to be deed restricted. And, you know, discussing this with my client, you know, we typically have 20 to 30% turnover over the course of a year. We've got tenants that move and come, and over the course of that time and the time it takes to build a project like this, we will have sufficient units that will be deed restricted over that time. And they'll be subject to the 30-year restrictions and all the obligations that come along with affordable housing. So I just, you know, Mr. McDonald will speak to that, but it's just a point I want to make, you know, as the board is considering this application. So, you know, with that, I'd like to have Mr. McDonough sworn in, and I'll have him put his qualifications on, or at least confirm.
You solemnly swear the evidence you're about to give before this board should be the entire truth?
Yes, I do.
And identify yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is John McDonough. It's spelled M-C, capital D-O-N-O-U-G-H, and I'm the project planner.
Thank you. And before you start your CV, all of your licenses and training, everything is up to date as it's been in the past?
Yes.
We're more than happy to accept you back as an expert in your field.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McDonough, you're familiar with the application. I'm not going to lead you through. I'm sorry, CV. Do I need to have him run through his qualifications? He did just confirm. We're good. Never mind. I'm sorry.
We're very familiar. Thank
I
you
don't
very
need to
much.
have Mr. McDonough go through his educational. Thank you, Chairman. You're familiar with the application, the variance relief that's being sought. I'm just going to turn it over to you, Mr. McDonough, to go into your testimony and findings.
Sure. The board has heard a lot of testimony. We're going to bring it all down to sort of a boil here for the board to consider the relief that the applicant is seeking. And we'll start with what's a beautiful piece of land. I'm sure you all know where it is, off of Route 46 there. And you can see the applicant is delivering a beautiful design response to that landform. What you see on the rendering is an absolutely beautiful building. Substantial compliance with your zoning requirements here in your AHO 15 Affordable Housing Overlay 15 district, which is specifically carved out for affordable housing to help the community meet its fair share obligation. The main relief that the applicant is asking the board to move on is height relief, D6 height relief. And as you can see here, we're looking at what is predominantly 2 floors and then the roof. On the main core of the building, the relief is not to extend the building higher to reach for the sky, but to drop the grade down, to drop the floor down in response to this sloping landform that the site sits on. So we're not looking at relief to give this site an unfair height advantage compared to the other properties around it. But again, I think a nice, efficient design response, dropping down with the grade. From this particular vantage, this would be a view looking to the west. So it would be the western exposure. That would be the one that has to drop down. It's going to be about an 8-foot or so height deviation that the applicant is asking the board to move on. On the downhill side, the applicant is going to plant evergreen trees in a row that will start at 8 feet and eventually grow up to 60 feet. These are mature conifers, so The applicant is moving right off the bat to visually mitigate any impact with that additional 8 feet. We're gonna go through the conventional positive and negative criteria, but that's the main relief that the applicant is asking the board to move on. Subsidiary to that, there's a handful of C variances as well and design exceptions. They're all laid out very well, nicely, as always, in Golda's report. I'll take you through them one by one, but at the end of the day, we're gonna look at the application as a whole and the overall betterments of the application as it promotes the public good, including the affordable housing component. So just some basic facts to start off. Again, we're talking about 3 tax lots here, block 29, lot number 1, block 31, lot number 4, block 33, lot number 3. In aggregate, there are about 13 acres, a portion of which is developed as the existing Hillside Gardens development. The remainder portion, where this development is proposed, is going to be on undeveloped vacant land. The surrounding land uses, if we draw a ring around the property, include garden apartments, you've got more vacant land, you've got commercial uses down the hill on Route 46. We're right at the border with the municipal boundary with Denville as well. The proposal, as you heard Mr. Walker's testimony extensively, Mr. Appel as well. We've got 2 garden-style apartments, 2 buildings, 77 units on the vacant land that will be to the south of the existing Hillside Gardens. Now, importantly, as part of the development proposal, we're going to take 14 of those units that are now built to market rate standard in the existing Hillside Garden development and convert them over. There's also going to be 1 unit constructed in the new development as well. That will hit the 20% set aside. That's a requirement of your affordable housing regulations. 77 units total, with 15 total affordable units cooked or baked into that. What's nice about the fact that the applicant is going to convert these units as opposed to constructing them on the new piece of property is that these units will be ready and available sooner than the constructed units, which might take 2 years for this project to actually be built. So there's a nice time factor in that as these units turn over, the applicant is going to deliver nice quality, affordable units that one will not be able to differentiate one from the market units. Again, as far as I know, last I looked, there's a nice long waiting list here in Morris County and in this region for affordable housing. So the fact that this applicant is moving to expedite the delivery of those, I think, is a good creative solution towards that overall goal to provide for a realistic opportunity for affordable housing with a developer that is ready, willing, and able to deliver that and deliver this conversion, which is not something we always see in the land use field. The zone conformance, the list of conformance here is pretty long. We've got permitted use in the zone. We've got substantial compliance with the bulk requirements of the AHO 14 district. The overall lot area is well above the minimum lot area requirement. The overall density is within the thresholds of your ordinance as well. The setbacks on all sides for the buildings are also going to comply. Those are light and air controls. The unit sizes, including the affordable units, will all comply. And then the parking supply will also comply with the ordinance. I don't think it's an actual requirement in your zoning, but there will be no relief for coverage, either building coverage or lot coverage as well. So a lot of those intensity of use controls are all met here in terms of what the applicant is proposing. So again, we're going to start with the D6 relief. I'm going to come back to each one of those individual C relief as listed in Golda's report. But the building height for building B would technically measure 53.7 feet, where 45 is the maximum that's allowed. Again, that's a delta of approximately 8.7 feet. We'll start with the overall positive criteria and how the application advances purposes of zoning at NJSA 40:55D-2. I've got 4 specific purposes here that are advanced, including Purpose A, the promotion of the general welfare, with new housing stock that includes a realistic opportunity for affordable housing, and as I said, this conversion aspect delivers the affordable units sooner than new construction. Next, we look at Purpose G, the planning goal to provide a variety of uses in appropriate locations according to the needs of all New Jersey citizens, because it concentrates people of all incomes close to community amenities. This is right by the Route 46 corridor there, spine of the community, and the project is compatible with the nature of the uses that are around it. Next, we see the advancement of Purpose I, which is the planning goal for promotion of a desirable visual environment. I'll let the building itself speak for itself. It is a beautiful, tasteful building. Mr. Appel always does a nice job, and our applicant is certainly delivering something that will be a nice focal point here, with a landscape around it that will provide a unifying element to help the built environment blend with the natural environment. Lastly, Purpose M, our planning goal for efficient use of land. It's going to put approvable, developable residential land back into productive use. And as I said, we have a developer that is ready, willing, and able to deliver this product. Those are all the positives that apply to all of the relief that the applicant is seeking here. In terms of the negative criteria specific to the 8.7 height differential, again, the intent here is to drop the building down to meet the grade, not to rise it up another 8.7 feet. So while there will be an additional 8.7 feet of exposure on the downhill side, as I said, there's going to be a row of plantings 8 feet high that are going to offset or mitigate that aspect.
And then, and not to interrupt you, Mr. McDonough, but we've also gone with a pitched roof here as opposed to a flat type roof, correct?
Yes, Mr. Appel and our applicant has done a good job of breaking up the overall mass of the building, both vertically and horizontally, with all those design elements that you see, the color differential, the material differential, again, not to create an obtrusive structure that would be another one of those Grasso purposes that case looks to avoid. Again, the added height will not block scenic views, will not create any negative shadow effects. This is sort of an isolated site up there at the top of the hill that's not looming over other homes. The added height will not create an imposing obtrusive structure in the landscape. Again, that's what's going to sit up on the top of the hill. The added height will not create a population density that exceeds the carrying capacity of the land. You can park it, you can water it, you can sewer it. It's designed in accordance with sound site planning principles. And as I said, this added height will not give this site an unfair height advantage over other properties, meaning we're raising up the grade to direct runoff onto other lands in an uncontrolled fashion. Therefore, based on all of that, the main relief that we're asking the board to move on, the D6 relief, in my opinion, can be granted without substantial detriment to the public, to the area, or to the zone plan. Next bucket of relief are those C variances, which are listed in Golda's report. The test here is the balancing test, where we look at, under C2, the benefits of the application as a whole, and whether they substantially outweigh the detriments. Here, we're going to take those use benefits that I just gave you, those D6 benefits, we'll carry them down, and that all of the C relief you're about to hear about is necessary to effectuate what is really a good project. Based on all of the testimony, none of the C relief will cause impacts of a substantially adverse nature. The building on the western exposure is building B. That's the one that has the 53 feet. Building A is the shorter building. That also needs height relief, but not in the level of a D variance, but a lesser C variance, where 49.8 feet is what's proposed, 45 feet is the maximum that's allowed. Again, that's a delta of about 4.5 or 4.8 feet above what's allowed. So relatively de minimis in terms of the relief the applicant is seeking. Again, this is internal to the site. It's in, I'll call it the courtyard or the parking area, and is going to be blocked from public view by the larger building, Building B, which is on the downhill side. For both buildings, we're looking for relief related to the number of stories. There are 4 on the downhill sides, where 3 would be the maximum that's allowed. That's for the same rationale as I just gave you for the height, that the building is dropping down to the grade. C relief for the number of units, and I believe that's building B, the longer building, where we have 53, and 30 is the maximum that's allowed. Again, we're looking at the breakup of the building here, so it is not going to seem excessively large. The applicant has done a good job with some movement in and out of the building to create some shadow effects and break up that overall mass. The 53 units will all be designed in accordance with building code, so there's no fire safety or other life safety concerns with the number of units in that building. This is all going to advance efficiency and compact design. The unit locations are going to be above the 3rd floor. That's a technicality as well, given the fact that we do have that 4th floor dropping down. And as Golda points out in her report, attic beyond the loft space, I think all of that folds together as part of the justification for the story relief and the design response to the landform that this site is on. I have C relief for the parking setback. There's a pinch point in the extreme, what would that be, southern portion of the property where you butt up against Denville. It is going to be nestled into the hill. There are no structures above it, but the vertical separation is going to mitigate any impact of a horizontal encroachment into the setback. So 3 feet where 15 feet would be the minimum required. We have that embedment into the landform along the Denville border. And then lastly, I'll fall back on the original testimony with respect to loading. No loading spot where 1 is the minimum that's required. Unnecessary based on an experienced operator who has control over move-ins and move-outs and for overall efficiency purposes and to minimize land disturbance.
And before we say lastly, we did also include 2 monument signs, Mr. McDonough, for identification purposes, off the primary driveway and internal to the site, which also require variance. I just want to make sure you touch on that.
Sure, we had talked about initially with the design and that entry approach into the site to demarcate that you've entered into a new section, if you will, a new portion, if you will, an evolution of the development that's already there. So for clear and safe site identification and differentiation, we think the relief is reasonable and appropriate there as well, and on balancing the benefits of that signage would outweigh any negative impacts. Lastly, we have a bucket of design exceptions. I know the design engineers touched upon it, but I'll hit them and take them back to the statute. These are design exceptions. They're not variances. They have a lesser burden of proof than a variance would have. We really just minimally need to show reasonableness and impracticability. The relief here is for the access drive width at 24 feet, where 30 feet would be the minimum that's required. You heard the testimony of Mark Walker that that's adequate for 2-way circulation at the lower speeds. That would be here. Turning movements through the site as well can be accommodated. Design exception for shade coverage less than 10% is mitigated by landscaping to the overall extent practical. It is the applicant's intent to make this site as lush as reasonably practical, to make it a nice, comfortable, livable place to be. Design exception for tree replacement, I have 100 versus 444, which is the same as above, mitigated by landscaping to the extent practical, and certainly preserving the perimeter of the site as well. There are design exceptions for slope disturbance in those 3 categories. This is relief that was previously granted on this site, and also the site will be stabilized in accordance with Soil Conservation District standards. And then lastly, a design exception for the wall height at 17 feet, where 6 would be the maximum that's allowed. In the interest of minimizing site disturbance, land disturbance, and overall tree loss, we think the efficiency is met there as well. So in conclusion, this application is going to provide a realistic opportunity for affordable housing to help the borough meet its affordable housing obligation. Overall, the relief sought, I think, is necessary to effectuate this good project and can be granted without any substantially adverse impacts. All of that said, I believe the statutory criteria for grant of relief are met and approval is warranted. That's all I have on that.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to interrupt you, but during your presentation, I want the record to show that Mr. Allen has arrived.
You didn't miss much.
You missed the very beginning.
A little bit.
We'll talk about that when it comes time to vote. Okay, any questions from our professionals? For professionals first, Mark.
Thank you, John. I just want to clarify two of the design waivers that, there was some testimony last time that I don't know if they're still being requested, because I think they might be addressed, and that was the 10% coverage of the parking lots. The engineer did reflect that that would be addressed in resolution.
I didn't even know Mark was here, but I'm getting a nod, yes, we'll
Okay.
comply.
Okay, so that's
I
not
have a wingman.
relevant anymore. And same with the loading, we found a spot that
Yes.
kind of acts as that. Okay, so those aren't, like, being requested.
Yep, you're right.
They've been found.
So the result of that exchange was there will be compliance with shade tree coverage?
For the parking lot.
Will be, and
For the parking
we, yeah, and we had that designated loading area that was in those parking spaces
Yeah.
there.
In front of the boat.
In front of the boat garages, yes.
Excellent. And then, so John made a point that this is a D6 variance because of the height, so it's the only, air quote, use variance that kind of converts this board into a zoning board in a way. Would it be your testimony that, for the building, it's either 10 feet or 10% of the requirement, and once you exceed one or the other, whatever is minimum, in this case, I guess it's the
It's not the
10%.
10 feet.
It's 10%.
So, would you, is the building, are we talking like 4 inches over the C variance cap?
To be in a C, we would be at 45, it would be 49 feet, so we're 53, we're about 4 feet above being a C.
4 feet?
4
Okay.
feet.
I don't know why I said 4 inches.
Yeah.
So, is your testimony based on the design, what's like, I guess, that difference? Is it, you would say in your planning opinion that it's
Negligible.
negligible?
Yes.
So that, if in theory, if it was 4 feet less, this would have not even had a D variance?
The board would not need the supermajority vote. It would need
Okay,
the
so
simple
that's what's
majority.
driving the supermajority.
So it's close.
Okay. And the testimony is around design and landscaping.
Right, and of
And-
course, again, for the board to remember, we don't have the mass of a solid roof, but it is pitched, so you're not getting the full effect of that additional height.
Okay. My questions are mostly just to clarify some of the affordable housing, like requirements on point. I know that the ordinance speaks to, like, essentially like, equitable access. And something came up in the last meeting where I think there's a gym in the new building, or at least I think there was one on the floor plan.
Any amenities, the folks that would be in the affordables and hillside gardens are entitled to access to any of the amenities that are provided, within the new development. I know we also have that outside area, like a gym.
Yeah, there's gonna be internally, there will be a gym and a lounge.
Internally, there will be a gym and a lounge, I'll just say.
And do you put that in the deed to, like,
It
make sure
would
there's awareness?
presumably be in the deed restriction. That would be an appropriate condition if the board were inclined to grant a resolution, so we remember it when it's time to deal with the deeds.
Okay. And then, there'll be ADA access in the buildings as well? I don't recall if we just clarified that, that's also part of the overall ordinance?
Yes.
Okay.
Proposed building.
And, I don't know if this has to be a requirement in the resolution, but definitely, like, as part of affordable housing, it would be my recommendation that there's an administrative agent that comes along with this, that works with the borough's administrative agent on administering.
I believe C, G, P, and H. I've worked with them. Is is that?
The applicant has one.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
We have one, or would work,
or like, yes,
whatever else is going on, in the borough, we can, yeah, we'll
Okay,
just work
so,
through those
you know,
issues.
they administer the deed restrictions and oversee the lottery
Absolutely.
process and the fair marketing. Okay,
yeah,
so you would have an administrative agent.
yes.
I think that's kind of most of my points for now. I'm more curious to just hear others.
Thank you.
All right, just a couple questions. Golda touched upon clarifications of the design waiver. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was some testimony also from the engineer during the last hearing that the design waiver for the trees, 441 required to be replaced, 100 were proposed. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we were also gonna try and work that number up a little bit higher too, is that correct? I know we don't have a number today to present, but would it be fair to say 100 would be the minimum that you plan to plan at this point?
We actually delegated some of that to the borough to have the applicant negotiate with the borough on a
Right.
money for trees. kind of-
That, I think that was after the 100, whatever was remaining, but I think you were gonna try and get that 100 up, is that correct?
We're gonna try to get as many trees planted as we can.
That's what I just wanted
Obviously
confirmation
brings
of
it
that.
down. Although it's funny,
Yeah, but then
trees are kind of
you're-
expensive to plant too these days.
Yeah, you're not just gonna willy-nilly stick trees everywhere.
No,
just for
it'll
the
be an
sake of it.
appropriate tree replacement plan.
Whatever we're gonna do would be subject as well to, you know, a new landscape plan.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out and working with Sam and.
Yep, we understand.
Arborists or anybody else.
Just a couple, we talked about the, access to the amenities, and these two next comments I'm only bringing up now because there was some new testimony on how these COA units would function, how they would, you know, be ready, when they would be ready and things, so if John, if you might not be the one to answer, but, the attorney may be the one to answer. Would it be a fair condition that the CO for the new building would not be permitted to be granted until all the COA conversions are complete in the pre-existing buildings?
So I think we are looking at this as a one-phase project,
Right.
but I would say it's fair to say we will absolutely comply with the UHAC requirements. So if there was a possibility that they might do one building, you have to have a certain
Yes.
percentage
Correct.
of it in one or the other, but yes, we will fully comply with UHAC as it's required. The deed restrictions will be in place, and, you know, at the appropriate time, the COs can be issued.
Got it, so, and just, yeah, and I believe just for clarification, so you're saying between the two buildings, the percentage of units that's between them, the percentage of the set aside per
Correct.
building would then have to be granted, so.
Yep.
Not all 15 units would be needed if only the smaller building was ready for its CO.
That's correct,
So-
yes.
And I think that's in compliance with the regulations. Now, my next comment is, because these units are being proposed on a separate property, although in common ownership, would the applicant consider a deed restriction or some other similar manner that these would be linked together in perpetuity essentially, such that, you know, the owner couldn't now sell off the old property and then no longer have that obligation associated with this property?
So,
Yeah.
Or so some, again, it
There
doesn't
would be
necessarily need to be a
like
deed
a
restriction,
cross-
but some
there
sort of
will be-
linkage between the two.
Yeah,
properties.
yeah.
There'll be a cross easement, and
Mhm.
even if it was sold off, the deed restrictions are gonna be, well, they're gonna be 30 years,
Yeah.
but they're gonna be in perpetuity.
Got it.
Because that's the reality.
Yeah.
You know, we'll comply with the regulations and so forth, so they're gonna remain in effect as long as they have to remain in effect. Candidly, whether, you know, one was ultimately subdivided off from the other, but I think we can work through language, you know, with the appropriate linkage in that regard.
And I think too, and you know, if the board agrees that just, you know, the intent here is such that the developer doesn't turn around, get a COs and then get rid of that
Alright.
property.
Yeah.
You know, the testimony is that's not gonna happen, but we just wanna protect from that.
Understood.
Okay, those are all my questions and comments at this time, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board members?
I have several.
You go. Microphone.
You can usually hear me. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You're requesting a relief on the height by 8 feet to 45 to 53. and you said that this is in regards to low-income housing. You're not building the low-income housing in either one of in this new development. So why would that be even advantageous to suggest? Because you're not.
It's all part of one package. We're supposed to look at applications on the whole. And regardless of whether this had an affordable component to it or not, I think that what we call the Grasso test is met here, because the additional height is not going to violate any of the things that height control would be intended to control. And those are those things that I ran through: blocking scenic views, creating negative shadow effects, an obtrusive, ugly structure in the landscape. It's not building up, it's going down.
I totally agree with that. The problem is, I don't agree with saying in regards to low-income housing, because
Well-
that is not low-income housing.
But this is a project that is the catalyst to assist the municipality
But
in
we're
meeting
not
its
gonna grant
obligation.
relief for the 53 feet because it's a low-income housing, because it's not.
Well,
It's not. Okay, so anyway, a quick, the proposed building, they're all going to be handicap compliant,
The proposed, yes.
the proposed. So how do you deal with the low income that you're putting in Hillside not being in compliant? Because he said it wasn't, Mr. Walker. You're only being compliant in the new buildings. So how are you going to go rehab the low income housing in the Hillside?
We'll meet whatever ADA requirements are required as it relates to the low and moderate income housing.
And you have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
So whatever is required by statute, we will satisfy that.
so
Yes.
the Hillside apartments will definitely be compliant.
To the extent that they are required to be, they will be, yes.
Okay. Has this property been purchased already, or are you waiting to get approvals? I'm just curious, from Bakers?
Contract purchasers.
It's not purchase,
We're contract purchasers.
contract purchase.
So if you get this, then you're gonna contract?
Correct.
Fine, I'm just curious if Bakers
Yeah.
sold it or not. So the other question I had is, I don't recall in the last statements, in the last presentation, anything about 8-foot trees growing into 60-foot trees. I came away thinking that you had this wall that you're gonna put up, and all of the trees that are down towards Riviera Maya, facing 46, we're going to totally block this, except for the dead of winter. I get that. So where did the 8-foot, 60-foot, to grow to 60-foot trees come in? Now we're talking about these trees. Why are you putting them there if you don't? Not that I don't want you to put trees in, but
I thought I saw on page 8 or something of Mark's your
Yes.
plans.
Mhm.
Showed a landscape plan with Norway spruce along the downhill side of, those are 8-foot high at planting, that's what he showed.
So this is supplemental plantings, so we're putting them back in. We are disturbing a certain area, so we're replanting that area. We still have trees that are in front of it, correct?
Yeah.
That's right. We're not talking about this yet.
but I mean, that wasn't, a couple of trees along the top of the 17-foot wall
On the bottom.
on the bottom.
Mr. McDonough's review.
Mark the wall in the winter time.
Got it. So what kind of tree are you gonna put in? Do you know that?
Norway spruce.
There's 2 different types of trees proposed on page 16 and 27 of the plan.
Okay.
That's exactly the plan
Yeah,
I'm
which would
holding
be
up.
Norway spruce planted at 7 to 8 foot high, which per this plan, I'm just reading straight off the plan, that the mature size is 40 foot to 60 foot high, and then interspersed between those are mountain laurels planted at 4 to 5 feet high with a mature height of 15 feet. So those are.
Do deer eat those?
Great question, no, these are deer resistant, they have the needles, the sharp needles that
Okay.
give the
And what about
deer resistant,
laurel?
drought tolerant, native, they have all the good qualities.
And then
What about the Mount Laurels? Laurels? Not Mount Laurels.
Not laurel, not Mount Laurel. There is a laurel, Mount Laurel.
Yeah, I know.
It's a tree, it's a bush.
Yeah, exactly.
But then there's
I love mountain laurel.
Yeah, I know. They smell great, right? They're
They're
beautiful.
they're absolutely beautiful, they're a nice alternative to rhododendron.
Yes.
Generally, deer resistance is rated on a grade of A through D, they're about B. They're not
They'll eat
A.
anything if they're hungry.
Yes.
So have you had any conversations with the town? Because I know what our ordinance calls for per tree.
We haven't had any dialogue, no.
Do you know what it costs?
As I sit here right now, I do not, whatever the number turns out to be, it'll be, that's one of the reasons why we don't look to plant. I didn't double check the ordinance.
The ordinance is $250 per
Right.
tree.
Mhm. Yep.
So you want to get a lot more than 100 because I don't think we should let it go.
Yep.
It's 250.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van Wert?
My question is, there's 6 buildings in Hillside Gardens. Are the new ones that you're gonna designate as low-income housing gonna be all in one building or spread among all 6
I think our
buildings?
goal is really just to intersperse them through the buildings, and it'll depend, because we're gonna have changes in tenancy and so forth. We're not looking to do a segregation situation, if that's the
Okay, so it's
question.
gonna be
Either
spread throughout the
they're all
whole-
gonna be in one building. The reality is, we have a couple vacancies in building 1, and building 3, 4, and, that's the goal.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board members? Yes.
At the last meeting, it was stated that the new building is gonna be fully sprinklered, and I neglected to ask about the existing building, if that's gonna be part of, you said the existing buildings were gonna be refurbished somehow, and modernized. I'm wondering if that includes adding sprinklers to
They
the,
won't include that in sprinklers, but what they typically do, and they're not required, but what they'll typically do, is refurbish kitchens, bathrooms, and so forth.
okay,
Some of them have been redone, and, we're not intending, somebody just, if one of the
Okay.
units was just refurbished, and then that becomes one of the ones that is, becomes vacant, subject to it, but it's part of the management's, regular protocol.
okay. My other question was, would it be possible, Samantha mentioned about confirming that the proposed and existing tenants, anybody who occupies any of the building on the plot of land, would be eligible to use all the amenities on the site.
Yes.
Would it be possible to include something in the lease that indicates what the amenities are that are available to each tenant as the leases
Yes,
are signed?
yeah, and that's, I think that's probably something, ultimately, these units are gonna have deed restrictions, so it's gonna be, and that's gonna be recorded in the county. Among other things, it's going to say that, but the leases on those units as well, it would follow that, it would
Okay.
include, those tenants are specifically entitled to use the gym and the this and the that. There'll probably be attachments to it, that
Okay.
specify.
All right. We also mentioned at the last meeting that there was some discussion actually about how many is the maximum number of people that could reside in each unit, and the question was how would that be enforced? So I'm wondering if the deed could include, based on the number of bedrooms, I suppose, the maximum number of people that may occupy the apartment, and I understand that due to either, I wasn't clear whether it was state law or whether the lease agreement, that tenants have to be given some advance notification if somebody's gonna come into their apartment, whether they're home or not home. Talk to me about how that might work.
So, 2-bedroom unit, first off, we have lease provisions, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna back, make sure what I'm saying is
Okay.
accurate, but I do this a lot, so we got a lease that says, this is operated as a 2-bedroom unit, you can't convert a den or something into another bedroom unit.
Okay.
You're gonna be subject to occupancy, requirements, so those are standard things that go into our lease agreement. We do have on-site staff that monitors and sees what's going on. We can't just walk in, as Jeff had said the
Right,
last
I remember
time.
him saying that, yeah.
But we do have the opportunity, we have to provide notice, so we're gonna have typically, is it annually fire?
Yeah.
Your fire marshals come in, a lot of times that's when things get picked up and
Okay.
somebody realizes that, I don't even know if dens, but all of a sudden the den's got another bed in it and so forth, and it looks like there are 14 people living in it. So we included in the leases, It would certainly be in the leases on the low and moderate income units, candidly, it's in our leases, our array and market rate.
And I suspect it would be, but I just want to be on the record as saying
Yes.
the maximum occupancy for each, since there are varying numbers of bedrooms. And it was mentioned that some of the units would have that loft area, and that was a concern to some of my colleagues, that would be converted to
Turn into
bedroom
another,
space.
no, I
And
understand.
it would be, developed into a problem or a fire hazard or both.
Mhm.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Hupler?
No,
Okay. We're blessed, I guess, with having ex-fire chiefs on the board. We're talking about a height variance. Do you guys see this being any issue for the fire department?
no, I don't.
Okay, we just wanted that on the record then. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, is there anyone here from the public that would like to ask questions about what they've just heard the planner say?
Hello, Katie Clark, 66 West Flag Street. Hello?
Yes, hi. Could you move up, please, where we can have the microphone so we get you on the record? We need your name again, please.
Katie Clark, 66 West Flag Street. Hello? I directed to...
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned about the affordable housing units and the conversion of the hillside ones into affordable units. Can you explain that a little bit more? Like, it sounds like it's sort of a rolling thing as people leave and there's turnover. Hey, then you renovate it and then people move in.
You answered your own question.
No, I just want to make sure that I understand correctly.
John,
I'm asking him, I want to make sure that I understand
yes,
correctly.
as a tenancy terminates and there's a turnover, those units will be, as the units open up, those are the ones that will be converted over.
And that's when the deed restrictions will come in place? You'll come before the board?
No,
We
no,
don't
no,
come, no, that's legal, we don't come back before the board, but we have to have the deed restrictions all in place before we can get COs for the buildings. So that's not something we come back before the board with.
Okay.
It's something that we work with the township, Mr. Mills, township attorney, and we put deed restrictions into place as that goes. This is a project that's probably gonna be, assuming it's approved, it's probably a 2-year build, over time. Those restrictions, all the deeds have to be in place before the CO's issue. We spoke earlier about, well, if it's just a smaller building, it's the percentage that would be required for that, whatever the number comes out, but they need to be in place.
The CO, you're talking about what?
Certificate of occupancy,
Okay.
to allow people
To
to
move in.
occupy the new building,
Okay.
correct.
So by the time that opens, you'll have to have at least 5 of them.
Whatever
That's
the
the
number
percentage
is
of the
for
small
you.
building, right?
Or if it all opens as one, you have to have the 14 units in Hillside Gardens and the one
But
here. in
how do
place.
you get the deed restriction for the particular apartment that has been vacated?
We own the building.
Well, no, but
We own the building,
it has to be
we own the
that unit,
building,
doesn't it?
we prepare a standard deed restriction that gets reviewed by the town, and the document gets recorded in the county of Morris.
And then we show that recording to the town as
Yeah.
proof that we've done.
We
our
show,
job.
yes,
Yeah.
we show that, we demonstrate to the town, and it's part of the checks and balances. It would be a condition of approval. They're not gonna issue a C of O until they see that the deed restrictions are in place. I don't know if you own a home, you have easements or anything, in your own property, but they get recorded in the county of Morris, with Morris County Clerk's Office. So, you wanna look up 2 years from now, you look up Hillside Garden, well, whatever, Ridgeview or Rockaway LLC, and what you're gonna see on the Morris County Clerk's site is, you're gonna see recorded deed restrictions
Yeah.
that show.
Yeah, just kind of for a point of clarity, this board is a judicial board. We don't have any enforcement power. So the only way we can get things enforced is to have them put into the deed.
Yeah.
The deed is a legal document that controls that property. It's recorded with the county, so it can't be ignored. So by having deed restrictions put in place that help fulfill the will of the board and the will of the developer, that assures that actually happens. That somebody doesn't just agree to everything and then not do anything. They really can't do that because it's written in their deed. They have to follow these specific rules.
Thank you. I understand all of that. I guess it's more just, the mechanics of it. Once someone moves out of, I'm not an engineer.
Listen, I'll tell you what the mechanics are.
Okay.
Again, they're gonna move out. We're gonna have that unit. We're gonna prepare a
Yeah.
deed restriction. We're gonna record the deed restriction.
Okay.
That will be filed with the township. We cannot get our C of Os until we have that in place. That's the procedure.
Okay.
Recorded. And with
Yeah.
that,
It needs to be
we're now,
recorded.
no, I'm just answering the question with that. We're taking 15 people that are on a long list in Morris County, that have low and moderate income needs, that don't have a residence, and we're moving them into the development. And the unit they're gonna be in has a deed restriction. That deed restriction also provides rent limitations.
Mhm.
We cannot exceed, we have to meet what the requirements are. The developer does not make any money on these. At the end of the day,
That's why
it is a net. No, that's not why we're moving them over. No. And I said this earlier, it's a market rate project.
No, no.
Hillside Gardens, yes.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I understand.
okay.
Yeah, good.
So that's the procedure.
Yeah, okay. You mentioned an affordable housing administrative agent that you.
Right, so there's an agent, the municipality needs to make sure that who we are bringing in here, that they are on the list that we've gone through. There are marketing requirements. You can look at, if you go to the DCA website, it's got all of the requirements that we are required to do. We can't pick and choose. We can't say, well, we're gonna grab somebody just from Rockaway Borough. There are times we love to say we wanna provide first responders, local. We have to take them off the list, we have to go through the marketing process. The reality is, and I think Gold, the town planner, would agree, usually you're still drawing on local residents on the list. I mean, that's what we typically see anyway, but the housing administrator, our administrator, works with the municipality. They demonstrate that we have followed all the requirements and protocols. We have to pay them. It's another administrative fee that the developers, cover in the process, and that's the process.
Okay, has your administrative agent been in touch with the borough's administrative?
We haven't had any discussions. Project's not approved, but we will.
Okay.
The town has to approve the administrative agent.
Huh?
The town has to approve whatever administrative agent we pick. They
Okay.
have to approve it.
Because the borough has one, right? So is there a way for?
I'm not sure what are you asking?
I'm asking if there's conversations.
We will.
Well,
we
so
have,
what the procedure is, would it be you get the project approved, then, because what if someone moves out of Hillside tomorrow, well not tomorrow,
we're not gonna.
2 months from now, right, and then you could change that apartment of quick sharp while you're starting to cut the trees down.
We're gonna,
No.
listen,
No?
we're gonna follow protocols. We're gonna make sure that the
But that
municipality
would
is
be
satisfied.
protocol,
We're gonna make
right?
sure, that the municipality is satisfied that we're using an appropriate administrative agent. The administrative agent that I know, we use, they operate throughout the state. They've been accepted in any municipality I've been in. I've been in many municipalities. Ms. Spire is familiar with the agent that we're looking to use. So we will coordinate. We're not deed restricting units next week without the municipality's knowledge or anything else. Everything we're gonna do is above board, and,
Glad to hear
that's
it.
about
Good
Yep.
to get that on record.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, and then just to clarify, you've mentioned about the trees, I know the professionals asked about it as well. Can you confirm the number of trees that you're obligated to replace? Because you said different numbers, and I remember something different from the last meeting.
I can be corrected, but the number I have from the plan is 441. 441 is the requirement.
Is that what
So, just to clarify, that's the number that's on the plan, and subject to the review letter we got from the engineer, we looked at, having to expand the limit of disturbance.
Time out 1 second.
Can you hear Mark, by the way? He's sending back, I'm sorry.
Is this on?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
on, it's on.
The questions are of this witness, ma'am. I don't want people in the audience randomly
Okay, I
answering.
asked him and they.
I understand that, and
They're trying to be.
Mr. McDonough should address you,
Oh,
or
okay.
Mr. Wickashala.
Okay, thank you.
Again, the plans say 441.
Okay, I think, your colleague was saying there, based on what we discussed at the last meeting, that that's actually higher and it's 497.
Whatever it is, whatever we discussed last month,
It's still the
and we
same.
went over,
Yeah,
that is what it is.
perfect.
And what we said tonight is we're gonna continue to work, to replace more, and, you know, work with board professionals.
Yeah, okay, I tried to understand that like as something that the trees don't really fall under you, I guess. Because you have to go to the council to get a permit to start cutting trees, is that correct?
So there's a tree removal permit, and we would need to talk about what the tree replacement cost will be.
Yes.
Mr. Byron was saying earlier, what the ordinance provides. Our goal is to try to plant as many trees as possible to bring down what that amount is, which we said last month,
Yeah.
by the way. You heard that last month.
I think so.
We talked about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So, that's what the goal is. Listen, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to anticipate, the board inclined to grant approvals, we talked about the trees. We've got, you know, any number of comments, technical review comments, stormwater drainage, and things like that. You know, all of those things would be referenced and incorporated, the board would grant approval on a resolution, and then we would have to go through resolution compliance. We would have to address all the comments, we would have to satisfy the board engineer, planner, that we've adequately addressed all the items that are in there. The trees and landscaping are just one part of it.
Yeah, that's the part that I, as a resident, am most interested in.
understood.
That's why I'm looking for clarity on the process.
Yeah.
The engineer was very helpful last week in explaining
Yeah.
where it goes from a council standpoint and looking at the ordinance. I think maybe why it's being brought up and why I'm bringing it up again is because they're changing our ordinance. They're introducing a new ordinance tomorrow at the council meeting. But after the last meeting, where you guys told me about the trees and what you have to do and you had to speak to them about a good number, I asked them and they said, oh, there's nothing going on with the trees. And now so that's why I'm asking you guys again about the numbers and the payments and whether you're planning on reforestation and, you know, paying into a fund versus the current tree fund. That's all I'm trying to understand.
Right.
But maybe that's a question for the governing body, not you.
Right. Well, we're certainly intent on working through those issues.
Oh, yeah, I think more if you're working through those issues, is it paying a lump sum into a designated fund, or of the 497 trees that you are obligated to replace, if you're only replacing 100, that's a difference of 397 at $250 a tree. That's what the current ordinance says. That's not changing, except they're changing other stuff to make it so that it's a different kind of payment. So that's me clarifying what you think. I think. I have no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public have any questions? Seeing no one, we close the meeting to the public. One last chance for the board to question the witness.
I just got a question. You're moving those, how many units are gonna go over to the old hillside door?
14.
14.
Of the required 15.
Of the required 15, so one's there. Now, when they're in the new building, would there be ADA requirements automatically built into those units?
Which unit?
The new, if they were going into the original building, where they've taken them out of?
They would need to meet whatever the code requirements are for a certain percentage, certain accessibility, and there's also criteria in there
So if we're
ADA
moving,
accessible, make ready. So
okay, but where I'm getting at, and Joyce kind of hit on it. Their answer is, we'll put them in this building, this building, and this building. So when there's an opening, so does that mean that you're always going to be upgrading, right?
So
That's the testimony.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, maybe they should have designated, because ADA and all that other stuff that would be combined may go to railings outside or whatever else.
we're gonna have to deal with them accordingly, but we don't designate now because we're not looking to tell somebody, you need to move out of this unit. We have a pretty good handle relative to turnover in the buildings and so forth. That's what operations management does. And whatever the code requirements are relative to ADA requirements on these units, we will comply with. And if it does require some units to have, you know, rails, ramps, etc.
Well, I'm just going on what you testified. You were going to put a smidgen in this building. You got 9 buildings up there.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
John,
So, you know what I'm saying?
well, now you're making me ask a question. Is it typical for deed restrictions to name the unit? And this would be your
Well, what we
hillside.
do, we certainly,
Like,
so
I mean,
we
name
do.
it by number, like suite.
So we
number.
will, yeah, no, I would expect that the deed restrictions will be specific to the units as they come on.
As they come on.
It would have to be.
Prior to.
It would have to be,
Of course.
Yes,
because those are the ones that you're gonna upgrade.
correct,
You're gonna have a 30-year
Yes.
yes.
contract on them being low-income housing, so they have to specify a specific
Correct.
unit.
Yeah, and your testimony was that you didn't want to group them all in one spot, so that's why you're using this process.
Correct.
You didn't want to clear
Part.
one building and then make that building the low-income housing building.
Correct.
Which to me makes it easier for the low-income housing, they're more scattered around.
Listen, the units are not gonna be any different than any of the other units. The finishes are the same finishes.
So I have just a quick question. So you're gonna have a bunch of low-income housing units in hillside apartments that are allowed to use the amenities uphill to the much more luxurious and comfortable and, you know, much more market value. Isn't that gonna cause a little bit of a ruckus down in your hillside, other people's wanting to go up and use them too?
We're gonna give them access as well.
Well, just a question.
We're gonna give them access. I want them to be happy.
Good point. Good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Seeing none, council, I guess you want to wrap it up?
I don't know if the
Yeah,
public
more
is, I don't know, we have no more testimony, I don't know if the public is looking
Oh, yeah,
to
we-
offer something before I
So,
do a brief closing.
yes, so thank you for reminding me. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to give testimony about what facts and things that they know about what's going on here that might be helpful to the board? This is your chance to give us the facts that you have in your head that we may not understand.
Hello, Kate.
Hi, and this time now you have to be sworn in because you're gonna give testimony.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Just raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the evidence you're about to give before this board should be the entire truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please sit down and let us know what it is you want to tell us.
No, I think I appreciate the time coming here and listening and everyone sort of asking the questions that are pertinent. I'm just a resident here, so I understand all of the things that the developers have been saying, and it's zoned accordingly and things like that. I think it's not about whether or not the development is coming to town. It is, right? It feels like, I mean, there's these variances that the impact is negligible. I think what it's, for me as a resident, is looking at the things where there are variances or I don't know all the words, the C's versus the D's and the waivers, that making sure that we have ordinances for this and making sure that we are, you know, holding them to that and being clear and explaining, you know, if the public come and ask you about things like this, once the construction starts, don't know when that's happening, it's going to be a 2-year project, all of those things, that it's less about the board voting yay or nay from my perspective and the community perspective. It's about being transparent with what's going on. Like, this is the largest project that the borough has had in recent years. The other one is on West Main Street, RPM, right? I think the engineering firm on that is Mr. Walker's partner, I believe. So, you know, they are familiar with our town, and they're much more familiar with our ordinances than any of the residents are, and you know that. I don't know how many people you get coming here. I know there were a lot of previous large developments in the town, because they get the notifications. I didn't get a notification about this, I happened to see it in the newspaper. So all I ask is that when you look at all of the paperwork that they've sent to you, that, you know, you're asking those questions that perhaps, yes, you have them as a land use board member, but you've been doing this for years. You know which ordinances you're looking at. You know what's been done in the past. All of those things, that's great. We do not have that context. We can go through and look at the meeting minutes. Sure, but it's really hard to glean some of that. So, you know, you're appointed to this board to ask those questions on behalf of the community and of the residents. So I just encourage you to do all of that. and make sure that everything that they've got and presented and submitted to you is accurate. Like the tree removal plan over there still says 630 trees. They end up cutting down 630 trees. It's 710, they testified it last time. So, you know, it's a big project. Let's make sure we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Seeing no one, we close the meeting of the public. And now, Councilor.
I'll be very brief. Thank you very much, everybody, for the time and consideration on this application. We are seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval with B and C variance relief for this project. This is a project that is consistent with your affordable housing overlay district for this particular site. We do in fact have height variance relief. Part of that is the fact that we're going with pitched roofs versus a flat roof, which could have brought that down. We think it's a good design, similar design actually to what this board approved however many years ago. You know, the original BCM project was approved. It is going to contribute to your third round affordable housing obligation. You do have numbers, and this is going to result in the realization of the borough satisfying at least that portion of the requirements. We've got an applicant here who is a long-time tax-paying property owner, developer, landlord, who is committed to this site, and really was the most appropriate developer to come in and realize a development here that'll satisfy a portion of your affordable housing requirements. So, you know, Mr. McDonough really laid out, you know, all the planning purposes and so forth. I'm not going to reiterate that. I think the board, I think you've heard enough. I hope we've been responsive to all of your questions. We did agree to a number of conditions along the way too that are in the record. There were a number of things, including compliance with the board professional reports, and I know I jotted down some notes on a number of things too that we agreed to. I'm sure Mr. Mills did as well, but we appreciate your consideration, appreciate the comments and the questions, by the way, from the public as well. This is a public vetting process, and certainly the public is willing to, or is entitled to ask questions, understand what's going on. Our goal here is, in fact, transparency. We've got plans. We've kind of laid everything out there. You've got terrific professionals who I know this board is inclined to grant approval here. We'll make sure that everything we've said and done does that we do dot the I's, cross the T's, go through resolution compliance before we can even consider putting a shovel in the ground on this, and that includes the deed restrictions and all the requirements of affordable housing, etc. So with that, we would respectfully request that the board grant approval. God bless you, board grant approval to the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One point of order, Mr. Hammond came in. He missed some of the negative criteria from the planner. Would you be willing to have him still become a voting member on this?
We are willing. I think you probably caught most of it, and some of it was reiterated, you know, afterwards. We take no exception to that. Certainly, if Mr. Mills is comfortable with that as well.
Thank you very much. Members of the board, we need a resolution.
I'd like to make a motion to approve with a number of conditions, and I have quite a list, so if I could just get a couple minutes to get my notes organized from last
Before
month.
we go over the list, let's make sure we have a second.
I'll make the second.
Okay.
We have a working motion now. You want to go over your
Okay.
conditions, please?
If you could just give me 2 minutes to go over the list of the all the notes I made from the last meeting and for this meeting, so that I can get it together.
Sure.
I want to make sure I cover.
I have a pretty good list too, so
Okay.
cross off as you go through,
Okay.
and if you missed anything, I think I have it over
Okay,
here.
all right, I had so many notes from the last meeting, I actually typed mine, and I never do that. Okay. Again, I recommend that the application be approved with the following conditions. The applicant shall obtain any and all approvals required by the construction official to utilize the property for new construction and renovate the existing buildings. 2, the applicant shall comply with the borough planner and engineer's review reports and testimony provided. Number 3, safety fencing, and I had a note from last time.
That was instead of a guardrail, I actually.
No, wait a minute, no, I got it, because I had my,
That's fine.
yeah, okay, so my notes from the last month said, if something is 17 feet or higher, retaining walls require a variance and a guardrail and a fence to keep, the cars where they belong and the pedestrians where they belong. So I would just like to say, condition number 3 is that safety fencing and guardrails be added to retaining walls 17 feet or higher, as we discussed the last time. 4, DEP approval regarding no impact on the freshwater wetlands that's at the very back of the property, that's all in order. Number 5, about the tree removal and replacement plan, just again confirming that to the best of your ability, you'll work with the town, of course, on the number of trees, as a number of people had mentioned, and that the type of trees be ones that are the least favorite of deer, because if the tree dies, doesn't hold the dirt, and we have that steep slope there. Number 6, soil removal, whether bringing in soil and taking out soil must be approved by the borough. Number 7, steep slope exhibit shall be revised to include the disturbance of gas and underground utilities, and I'm sure that those things, you'll see all those stakes in the ground all the time. And I don't know if it's any harder on a steep slope, but as a lay person, I would think it might be. Number 8, as specified by the engineer, a treatment works approval form from the New Jersey DEP is required for the proposed sanitary sewer extension and added wastewater flow out of that sanitary system. RVRSA approval is required for the proposed sewer connection prior to construction. Number 10, the applicant shall obtain a sanitary sewage connection permit and for any permits that the borough requires. Number 11, a water main extension, I don't know if it's a permit, what it's called, shall be secured from the DEP, and that they're in compliance with the engineer's requirements about how that happens. 12, the Rockaway Borough water allocation permit is secured. 13, permanent utility easement for the water and sanitary sewer outside the proposed right-of-way is granted by the borough. 14, the applicant shall comply with the engineer's instructions regarding stormwater, suspended solids, and we talked at great length last week about how that water gets filtered through certain layers of stuff so that the least amount of sediment and particulates, I don't know where you're going, go into the ground.
Well said.
Yeah. 15, New Jersey DOT approval of the plan. The stormwater plan shall be approved. 16, the applicant must obtain approval of a drainage easement if they need one for the lands that are owned by the borough on block 31, lot 13. 17, the deed shall be prepared and contain a maintenance manual approved by the borough engineer with respect to storm management, because if you have a great system, members of the board have talked about this before, have a great system but you don't take care of it, it goes south really fast and it causes problems for other people.
Yes. That would be the O&M manual.
In the deed, right?
Right, yep,
We
that's a
recorded like
deed.
a deed of declaration.
Right, deed,
Yep.
I just said deed.
Yep.
I'll leave it to Mr. Mills to
You're
get
all
all
good.
of the legal. 18, any work within the US 46 right-of-way requires a road permit, I believe. Route 46, we talked about that before. And also, I had something on my notes from last week about talking about that. And it's, give me a second. It was about the no left turn.
I think it was to, at very least, talk to do.
Let me see.
Private
Each
parking.
lane parking. Here it is. Regarding to Route 46, the developer will apply in writing to the New Jersey Department of Transportation to post no left turn onto Route 46 sign. I mean, and you apply and they either say yes or they either say no, but we need proof that they answered you. So that you'll provide a copy of the request and a copy of the reply to the borough. Okay. I got that one.
I had one question that said, look at
Hillside, no left turn onto Route 46 from Hillside. A Summit, I'm sorry, Summit. S-U-M-M. I didn't write the street name down. Summit. I need to, because I had the name of the street wrong. So, yeah, so no left turn at the Summit.
Is that accurate?
Yes, I believe so. I think the last time we did reach out to the DOT, whether, again, like you said, whether
Fine,
they say
yes,
yes
I
or
mean,
no.
I get it, they could say yes or they could say no, but we at least want that effort made to say, we'd like to, stop people from making that, because that's an accident waiting to happen.
Understood.
Okay. 19, soil and sediment control certificates must be obtained from the Morris County Soil Conservation people about the, whatever stuff is left in the water. 20, signage shall be installed indicating that there's no parking on the access roads. I know there are already signs there. When I drove through, I looked, but we want to make sure that those continue so that the fire trucks and stuff can get all through the neighborhood. A deed satisfactory to the municipal authority and the planner shall be executed and recording restricting the affordable housing units for 30 years. 22, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the engineer and the planner have any questions about utilities, stormwater, grading, building footprint, lighting, all those issues will be addressed. A developer's agreement shall be entered into between the developer and the borough outlining the responsibilities for suitable bond regarding off-site improvements, utility extensions, and things that may negatively impact the public health. What number am I up to? 24. All tenants and borough officials will be provided with a contact number so that the property manager, who I understand is living off-site, can be reached in the event of an emergency or some kind of issue to respond to emergencies. And I believe that's already posted, the number's already posted on one of the buildings there. I noticed that when I walked through. But something like that where anybody who drives by and sees a problem knows who to call. That was 24. 25, each lease will include the maximum number of people who may occupy the apartment. And from the testimony tonight, I understand that that can be confirmed or can at least be reviewed as a part of the annual on-site fire inspection walkthrough, whatever that's called, and that's going to happen anyway. So if you could roll it all into one, that would be great. We talked last time about the parking lot area adjacent to the front of the false garages where really in the building there's going to be those trash departments where the trash is going to be crushed and stuff. Yeah, that they'll be striped outside and labeled loading zone for short-term vehicle parking only, so that when they come to do whatever they got to do, there's nobody parked there that's not delivering something. And that the last one, 28, both existing and proposed units will all have language in the lease indicating what amenities are available to all tenants. That's it, that's what I got.
Thank you very much.
One thing that,
I got a couple more.
one thing that I might add, when we were talking about DOT, the board asked and we agreed that we would ask DOT to consider improvements to the crosswalk.
Yeah, I have here to add advanced warning signs to the pedestrian crosswalk on Route 46 near the Summit Street intersection for both approaches to
Okay,
improve
so that would be
safety.
29.
That would be something.
That was one on here.
29 crosswalk.
Where would those signs be?
Those would be advanced warning signs on Route 46 as it approaches the pedestrian crosswalk at Summit.
It's a DOT issue, we're gonna ask, we'll provide, hopefully they approve it, if they don't, we'll also let you know if they're
Thank you.
not willing to do it.
Okay, that would
Are those signs be
Some sort of advanced warning sign.
Whatever we can do with that crosswalk is kind of the idea.
Okay. 29, you have anything else, Samantha?
I do. I have two more comments. One probably goes back to the same topic of the pedestrian crosswalk as well as that no left-hand turn. There was a question and the applicant did agree to provide the site distance for turning onto Route 46
Right.
from Summit Street. So I just wanted to put that as a condition. And then related to
Is that,
stormwater.
I'm sorry, is that a separate number or is that in with the crosswalk thing?
I thought it was actually part of,
That's
one of
really-
the earlier conditions.
Yeah, that's really part of the traffic engineer's report. He will do that analysis. He might then use the results of that with his request to the DOT.
Oh,
But I would think they're separate. They can be handled separately. Then my other comment I have here is that we requested that the drainage analysis for where their storm drainage ultimately discharges into the Route 46 system, that drainage analysis is carried down to Smith Field, which is where the pipe terminates on borough property and then
Is that
transfers
the
from
same
there.
as soil and sediment control certification must be obtained
Yeah,
from
different
Morris
comment.
County?
Different comment. This has to do with their drainage study.
Samantha, is that in your report?
That comment is not in my
Okay,
report,
and
no.
can you say that again, please, then?
So it's to increase the drainage analysis on Route 46 to the pipe discharge, which is near Smithfield.
To discharge
It's a little bit further down.
That would be pipe discharge from the on-site storage?
Correct. What impacts their discharge has on that system.
Gotcha.
It basically, Sam, it's gonna require, Mark, Baker Walker to modify their report.
Correct. So extend it off-site further down to where the pipe turns.
Supplement
Okay,
it
to
or what have you.
Smithfield, got it.
Correct.
Was there discussion and a condition around Van Dyne
You're what?
and improving that street up?
I
Consider.
have two comments on here that says board to consider, and then board to consider adding any improvements to Van Dyne, and board to consider whether they were preferable to the Cobra style or shoebox style lights on the site. So those were kind of discussed, but not really,
Yeah, because the drainage from the project is gonna cross over a piece of borough property and then go down Van Dyne Street, which is basically an unimproved road at the moment, is by my observation. And we just wanted to make sure that access is still available to the properties along Van Dyne while this project is
And
undergoing.
help me
its
with
finish.
wording on that. Help me with
And we
wording on that?
I don't think we have an opinion as exactly where that drainage should be, but they have to make sure that they maintain access.
correct, they definitely have to maintain access, but I think we also wanted to discuss, is the board requesting that Van Dyne be paved upon their completion, that the gravel DGA subgrade type road that they have there is restored to its pre-existing condition? That's what it is today, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a compacted gravel, maybe at some point it was paved and it's just broken up over time, I don't think so, I think it was always a gravel road. So, there could be, without, we're talking now, we're gonna have to look into this a little further, if you do pave it, there could be some unintended stormwater runoff, because there is some degree of infiltration, right, into a gravel road.
So did you guys plow it?
We only go in maybe 150 feet,
And so the house that's above that?
that's private
They're
avenue.
on their own.
Okay.
So is it fair to say that we want to maintain access to Van Dyne Avenue and maintain the gravel in a...
It'd be
And be restored.
Be restored to its pre-existing condition.
Restored to its
Okay,
current.
That's what I.
You don't want it paved.
Okay.
It's a water issue.
Yeah.
You do not want it paved.
Okay, so not to pave, to maintain the gravel.
Restore the current condition.
Do not pave.
Current
Okay. All right.
Yep, those, and then the other discussion item that, again, we talked about, I believe, Mark, you could correct me if I'm wrong, the lights are proposed as Cobra style.
Yeah, they're
And sometimes we look more at the shoebox style, which they both kind of are self-explanatory. The Cobra is kind of a Cobra head, the shoebox is the box that's kind of downward.
As
Well,
long as
the
there's
Cobra is also, it's downwardly lit,
Yeah.
but it's very sleek and modern, minimalistic design,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we're trying to accomplish here. So
Do you
the-
have, on the site plans, is there like a cut sheet or anything that shows? what the
Yeah,
Cobra
there
is?
is on the construction detail sheet.
Okay, I'm just gonna pull that up and maybe we might be able to just pull that up and. Yeah, so that is on page 25 of 27. It's kind of almost like a hybrid too, of it is a Cobra style, but it's a little bit, it's got some shoebox elements to it as well.
Yeah.
Do we
The
want to...
plans will speak for themselves. You don't have to
Okay.
repeat it.
So the lighting will be as described on the plan, is that fair to
Yes.
say?
So then you don't need to put a comment about it.
Then I
unless
don't
you
need
wanna
to say
change
any,
it.
okay, I don't need another one, okay, all right.
We did also, I'm sorry, I had a condition that I always jot things down, so I did see, the board discussed this, or somebody brought it up, we'd agreed to installation of no parking signs on the 24-foot wide drive aisle. Not sure exactly where, but I think.
I did
we
say,
agreed to that.
yeah,
Was that our?
on the access road.
Oh,
The
okay.
access road,
There you
yeah.
go.
On the back.
On the access road.
I referred,
Right,
I
right,
referenced it
did-
differently.
Yeah, I
in my
got
notes.
that one, okay, I
Okay.
got that one, okay.
Because otherwise, you know, if it's close to your home, then people will park there.
Right,
It's just the nature of the beast.
okay. Do you have anything, Golda?
The administrative agent, did that make its way into the resolution?
Yes, we talked
I
about,
mean, something they're gonna have to do, but if you want security.
you mean, that's the tenants and shall have the contact number of the property manager for
Um,
emergencies?
We
That one?
recommend that they hire a qualified administrative agent to administer the affordable housing.
That's a different one.
Initially or continuously?
Well, it would be continuous.
Very continuously.
Yeah.
You have one, did you say you had one?
That's another one.
Did you use
We typically work with, who's it, CGL?
CGENH. And there's also
Frisbees
Piazza.
It'll be somebody with
That
their
account-
own municipality, make
Yeah.
sure you're good with it.
Can
I would
somebody help-
suggest that
Can you help me
the-
with the wording on that?
Yeah, so that the applicant hires an experienced administrative agent to affirmatively market the units, income qualify applicants.
And to render the affordable housing units
To market the
compliant.
affordable units.
And income qualify,
Okay.
they oversee it and they work with our towns as well.
Okay, so that would be number 32, that they'll hire an experienced agent to market the affordable units according to regulations.
And I have notes that they testify, I don't know if this is by your deed or however you testified, that no lofts or dens are to be converted into bedrooms.
Right.
Is
Right,
that
we talked
it?
about that, and we talked about including the maximum number of people can occupy the unit, and having that,
You have that in there.
I do have that in there,
And
that's
that
number
they
25.
will, okay, and that they will give a monument sign detail, it's an exhibit, but it's not in their plans.
Okay.
The bedroom count would be a function of the CO for each unit, would it not?
It would be, I think you do
I mean,
one
it's
total
like
description that
you
collects
put up
all.
no smoking signs too, I mean, converting a bedroom or a den, a loft or den into a bedroom, I mean, do you feel that's necessary in the resolution?
Yes,
It's this board's resolution.
yes.
Yes.
The item I proposed, number 25, was each lease will include maximum number of people who may occupy the apartment, and that it will be enforced as part of the annual fire inspection on-site visit. Because that way the tenant gets notice that we're coming in for fire, and by the way, we're gonna look for how many people are living here.
And then anything else I had was just captured in my report that.
Okay, and that's, I already covered the
The
report.
resolution generally requires compliance with the planners
Right.
and the engineer's report.
Yep. Okay.
And the seconder of the motion is happy with all
I'm
this?
happy with all of it.
Now we have discussion, Mr. Van Wert.
Yes, under discussion, you put down 17 feet for the wall height. It should be like 6 feet, so it covers the whole drive coming up.
Oh, I have a note, and correct
It's
me.
number 3.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this
It's
one.
number 3.
That, yeah.
It should be 6 feet, not 17 feet.
Safety fencing and guardrails to be added to, and my notes from the last meeting said that they're required over 17 feet. Is it less than
Should be
17?
6 feet.
There is a wall that's proposed at 17 feet, but as stated, that wall actually varies in height. I think
Yeah, it
it
starts
starts
at
at
6
6 feet and goes up
and
to
goes up to
17.
17.
We should have the fencing along the entire length.
Okay, so
Yes, so
safety
6
fencing shall
feet.
be added on top of retaining walls,
6 feet.
regardless of height?
Entire length along access road, I think that
Either way.
covers it all.
Wait a minute, entire length
We could take out the height and just say entire length along access road, because that's where.
along access road.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so that's
After the
amendment to
fire
number
fence,
3,
all along that.
access road.
Because that's a thing for kids to jump off.
Absolutely.
Access road. Okay, got it.
Okay, any other discussions? Okay, seeing none, will we have a roll call vote, please?
Ken Van Wert,
Yes.
Joyce Byrne,
Yes.
Ron Hammond,
Yes.
Bill Hoffler,
Yes.
Mark Howard,
Yes.
Barbara Koch,
Yes.
Kim Rose,
Yes.
Chairman Blair.
Yes, so the resolution as we laid it out carries, and at our, hopefully at our next meeting, the meeting after next, because the next meeting is next week.
Definitely not gonna have it for next week.
Ready.
Okay, if Mr. Mills has it ready next week, we'll be
Okay.
good to work on it.
Great.
Thank you very much, everybody. We really appreciate the time, thought, and all the courtesies, believe me. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Now, is there any other business that needs to come before the board tonight?
Next meeting is March 4th, is that true?
Tuesday, yes.
Right, March 4th, 7 o'clock, got it.
What else is on the agenda for that? Okay, but there's other business besides that.
You always surprise me with the agenda, so it's a surprise for you.
It's better than that. Yeah. I will adjourn the meeting.
We're gonna go on to March.
You want those?
I don't know, they might, are they done? Are they done? I guess they did.